Hi, my name is Rob Evans. George and I first met, I think, in 93 or 94 when he and Cassandra first moved to Plant City. He came to us from Orlando where he was in the Dr. Phillips Rotary Club, and for whatever reason, a lot of our members thought he was a doctor, and it didn't really took us a while to figure out that he was the king of square hamburgers, which we continue to this day to give him a hard time about. But George and I have done a lot together in Rotary. We've become really good, close friends. Both times that I've been president of the club, George has followed me and kind of cleaned up my messes, so I appreciate him for that as well. We give each other a hard time between University of Florida and his beloved Ohio State Buckeyes, so we always try to pick on each other as much as we can. So we have a good time with that. George really has a huge heart, and he's always looking for ways to give. He has been a very strong leader for the Plant City Family YMCA, the United Food Bank of Plant City, Rotary in general, and really for all of Plant City. I consider it an honor to be a friend of his and to be in his company, and I don't think that the Y could have made a better choice. And I'd just like to congratulate George and Cassandra for all the support that she's given as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Scott. I first met George 9 years ago when I joined the Plant City Family YMCA Board of Directors. And over the course of the last 9 years, I've worked with George on many different events, and I've seen George work on many different events. Not just at the YMCA, but within Rotary, the Food Bank, and many other community endeavors. And George is one to always jump in with both feet. He's not one to stay on the sidelines. So George has really set an example in this community what a strong leader is and how a strong leader acts. And George, I'm very proud of you. Congratulations, you deserve it. Have a great night.
Hi, my name is Brian Kyle, and I've known George Banning now for just over 11 years. First met George and his wife Cassandra back in 2003 when we moved to Plant City. Since then, we've become quite good friends. Since that time, George has been significantly involved in an assortment of charities with a wide scope of activity. On a national basis in 2005, George was instrumental in the planning and execution of transporting an iron lung from Tampa to Chicago. Along the way, they had multiple rally points in an attempt to celebrate the eradication of polio. In 2007, George, on an international level, was involved in acquiring 50 satellite phones for the different Caribbean countries. In 2004 and 2005, after we saw what happened here with our experiences with hurricanes, it became clearly evident how important communication during disasters are. George worked in an effort to address this issue. In recent years, George's charitable contributions and his leadership have been evidenced closer to home. George has served in both planning and execution capacities for a wide variety of worthy causes. Oftentimes, he has hosted events along with his wife Cassandra, lending her capable skills. In fact, we've had so many charitable events at the Bannings that we've worn a permanent path between our home and theirs. With all of the fundraising involved in these events, we've even considered giving George direct access to our checking account to expedite the process. Leadership has been described as a process of social influence in which one can enlist the aid and support of others in accomplishing a common task. This definition personifies George Banning. Congratulations, George.
Hi, my name is Bruce Rodwell. What can one say about George Banning? A strong leader, you betcha. When George speaks, and he often does, everyone listens. They better, or he will just keep on talking until he has their full attention. You have already heard many words about good old George. Some things I may say have already been said, but that's what happens when you get a group like this together. George is a very faithful YMCA regular. He arrives between 5 and 6 in the morning at the Y. How about that? Some people ask him, why do you get up so darn early? But he enjoys that, I'm sure. He sits at the coffee klatch table when he walks in the door, and he meets all of his friends there. I might mention that George rides his trusty bicycle over to the Y. I say trusty because George doesn't use the highway, he uses the paths at Walden Lake to get over there. And he depends on that bicycle to do it, and he does very well. And when he gets there, he's not all tired out. Usually, when you ride a bicycle, but George is very physically fit because he does work out at the Y regularly. Anyway, he holds class, or you might say he does hold class at the Y, at the table, at the coffee klatch table. He sits there with a group of people and they all gather around and listen to George. He likes to talk, Anybody that knows George likes to talk. Anyway, he usually dominates the conversation, and I'm not sure if there's any real problems that have ever been solved, but they continue to meet every day. Let me say this about George's ability as a strong leader. When he gets a project in his head, he tackles it head on. When a friend of his came up with a huge supply of vacuum cleaners, George was first in line to offer his assistance to see if he could sell them. These were neat little cleaners and they cost only $20. And George took the bull by the horns and he was on his way to selling vacuum cleaners. Believe it or not, he sold over 400 of these neat little cleaners. He was such a good salesman, I even bought one, but they were a good little cleaner. The money that was collected as a result of those sales was given to the Daybreak Rotary Club to help with the expenses of community projects. You gotta love the guy. He really has a heart as big as gold, and that is why the YMCA chose him as this year's Strong Leader. Thank you.
My name is Bruce Sperry, and congratulations, George. There's no doubt that you are deserving of this recognition and award. The only question was, when would this happen? Your support for Rotary, the food bank, and of course the Y are unparalleled. Your support has been more than just financial, but a significant donation of your time to help these organizations and causes, and in fact make Plant City a better place to live. You were until now well-kept secret in Plant City. Everybody knows what an important part of Plant City you are. You just don't do things for praise, but you do things because it's the right thing to do. We've been friends for over 20 years now, and I remember when we first met, you were visiting Rotarian at our local club. We didn't know whether you were a Wendy's franchisee, or whether you were a doctor, or even Dr. Phillips himself, but we learned very shortly what a great asset you are and what a great person you are for Plant City. And yes, even the world are a better place because of you, and being your friend has made me a better person. Congratulations again.
Hi, my name is Sue Marshall. George Banning. Where do I start? Well, I've known George for a few years now, primarily through the Y. And he started coming to my classes years ago, spin classes. And he was a little bit quiet to begin with, but he started opening up, and after that, there was no stopping him. If you've come to my class, you know that. So he was interviewed a long time ago about what he thought about the Y. And I always tease him about that. He said he doesn't come just for the workout, which is obvious, because he's always sitting having coffee in the morning. So let me show you what I've seen. So the one thing George really does have down pat is the coffee. We're having coffee in the morning. Anytime you come in, anytime after 6, you're going to see George sitting at a table, talking with a group of people, different people, all the time, having coffee. Coffee again, coffee down here. Just continue on. You'll see coffee, and occasionally you'll get him in a spin class. And here he is with his buddy Bob. But that's George. That's what we like, is we like to have just the camaraderie of the community, and I think it's the coffee, not the workout, that he goes for. I know George might have been a little worried about some of the things that I might bring up, But I thought long and hard, and I remember our oath that whatever goes on in the spin room stays in the spin room. So I'm going to try not to bring up any of those things. You know, where he's always selling vacuum cleaners, things of that nature. I won't bring that up. That actually is outside of the spin room. But what I will bring up is some of the things that George has done in the past, which has been really phenomenal for some of our members here at the Y. I know that there was one person that we were trying to get into summer camp, and George was very instrumental in helping her get her daughter into summer camp. And as her mother was packing that first day of camp, it said to bring a bathing suit. Her daughter was really nervous about bringing the bathing suit. She doesn't know how to swim. I don't know how to swim. What if they put me in the pool? And her mother said, well, you know, they said to pack it. We'll just pack it, and you can tell the person that you don't know how to swim, and, you know, it'll be okay. Well, that lady came back to our spin class and shared with the group that that very first day, her little girl came home, and she was so ecstatic that she was going to get swim lessons in our summer camp. And I know that George was really instrumental in helping people realize how important that was. I'm thrilled that you're being honored with the Strong Leaders Award for all the things that you do for numerous people, for the YMCA and the Plant City community in general. You're the best, and we all love you.
Hi, my name is Jody Stevens. The one thing I admire most about George Banning is he's always selling something. If it's burgers, to raffle tickets, to tickets to an event, to even vacuum cleaners. I would get the biggest kick out of it when I would see George walking into the YMCA at 5 a.m. going to spin class with the vacuum cleaner under his arm. And sometimes there were two, one under each. And this was not for George in his pocketbook. This was something for charity. And he sold over 400 of these items. But let me tell you, it was a funny, funny sight when I would see George come in, again, at 5 a.m., going to spin class with a vacuum cleaner under his arm. George truly is a valuable asset to our community. He has done so much with Rotary International. He's done a lot with Daybreak Rotary, just was the president, and the food bank, and even our own YMCA board. And most recently with the YMCA, he was asked to chair the annual giving campaign. And so, of course, George said yes, and he exceeded his goal and beyond, and we are so proud of him. And whatever George is given a task, he always rises to the occasion. So George, congratulations on your award tonight. Most well-deserving, and you're definitely a star in my eyes.
Hi, I'm Mikey Snyder, and I'm a neighbor to George and Cassandra Banning. Been a neighbor for 15 years. There's a lot of stories I could tell you, but this is how we met the Bannings. Dean and I had just moved in, and we were pressure washing our back porch. And George came over and introduced himself and asked us to please turn off the pressure washer because HGTV was recording in their backyard because they were going to be on an episode. So I looked at Dean and I said, well, I guess we've moved next door to some HGTV watching Yankees. So how are we going to handle this? And Dean said, let's start planning. So our friendship blossomed, and they shared flowers, we shared flowers and ideas, and together we made a beautiful backyard. And George and Cassandra called their backyard Brittany Park. So we joined together our backyards through the paths, and so now we're all Brittany Park. And I have to say that George and Cassandra have raised thousands of dollars in their backyard, hosting all their the charities and the food bank and Rotary, and just proud to be their neighbor and proud to call them friends. George, congratulations on this award. You're very deserving of it, and I'd love both you and Cassandra.
Hi, I'm David Miller, and I'm here to share a few thoughts about George Banning, my friend, the man who's being honored here tonight as the Strong Leader of the Year. I've known George approximately 11 years. He's a neighbor of mine. He lives several houses down the street. George is a true friend of mine, and I have no doubt whatsoever that he would extend me any favor asked of him without hesitation if it was all possible for him to do so. George is a guy that when he undertakes a project, he goes after it full bore. He don't hold back. He puts all of his energy into it. He will readily give his time, talent, and treasure for any project that he feels will better Plant City. He does have a few human frailties. Among those few flaws, one, he's an ardent Ohio State Buckeyes football fan. And he believes with all of his heart that there's some tiny, tiny chance that one day the Buckeyes will beat a top-tier team like LSU, the Florida Gators, Alabama Crimson Tide in a football game. Despite the fact that there's abundant historical data to support this, George still truly believes, and he's doomed to a life of eternal disappointment. George Banning is a true friend. He's 100% supporter of the Y. He's a great American, and he's always eager to take on any project that will better hit the community that he lives in. I'm proud for George to be my friend, and George, you're truly deserving of the honor bestowed on you tonight as strong leader of 2014. Thank you for being my friend.
Hi, my name is Dave Sollenberger. When George asked me to say something good about him, I didn't realize that was going to be one of the greatest challenges I have ever faced in my life. And I've looked around, I've asked around, and I spoke to Cassandra, and I told her what he was asking for, and she said, well, she says, I really can't help you, she says, but there's plenty of the other stuff out there. So I went out and talked to a lot of people in the community, and the only person I could find who didn't have something negative to say was this guy here. And here's what he told me. And that's as good as it got. Moving right along, speaking of Cassandra, she was able to help us out on our police chief selection by participating on an oral board. And at the conclusion of that oral board, we asked that no comments be made outside of the meeting until after an offer had been made to the selected person and had been accepted. And Cassandra said, I won't mention it to anybody, especially not George. If I did, it would be all over town. George's been very helpful to me as city manager here. He's offered me some splendid advice. He was telling me about some advice he wanted to pass on from one of his city manager friends up in Worthington, Ohio. Namely, it was the way to succeed in city management was to make sure you got all the leaves up off the street in the fall. Well, I've been here 12 years and I haven't seen enough leaves in the fall to matter one iota. You know, I was really expecting George to follow up on that and advise me about how important snow removal is too. George keeps telling me we should furnish our refuse collectors with gloves. Well, we do. And they get a fresh pair every day. Now, George gives me a lot of advice on a lot of things. And, but you've heard of police ride-alongs? Well, I am arranging for something special for George. It's a garbage truck ride-along on the back end. And George, here's a pair of gloves for you, specially for you, and same that we give to everybody else, but I know that you'll really appreciate them. George, you know, my advice to you is, let me do my job, and you do what you're really good at, fundraising and hamburgers. Speaking of fundraisers, the fundraisers at George's home create so much traffic that the city is actually considering new traffic regulations to deal with that sort of thing. And once the traffic gets there, it creates a huge parking problem. And the neighbors are talking about volunteering to provide valet service to help alleviate the situation. Another thing, with your great diplomatic skills and visits to Russia, I cannot understand why you haven't gotten Putin to become a good friend of the United States. I really thought you would be able to pull that one off, but you didn't. Now, finally, George is a good friend, he's a great neighbor, and truly deserving of the recognition as the YMCA's Strong Leader of the Year. Congratulations.
Hi, my name's Doug Updike, and I just want to congratulate George Banning on winning the 2014 YMCA Strong Leader Award. I've been lucky to live across the street from George for the last 9 years. We moved into Walden Lake, my wife Heather and I, and it's been a great pleasure having George and his wife Cassandra as neighbors and now great friends. You know, George is a great community leader and has many friends in Plant City. So that got me thinking, and I came up with a short list of 5 things that I think everyone can identify with of how I know you're friends with George Banning. Number 1, if you have one of these Frosty Jr. free coupons, that's how I know you're friends with George Banning. My second thing is, if you own one of these vacuum cleaners, that's how I know you're friends with George Banning. I believe that half the population of Plant City owns one of these. Rumor has it that Jim Scott liked and bought enough of these vacuum cleaners that you can literally get one of these vacuum cleaners with each new car purchase through 2019. Number 3, if you have ever been a member of, or are a current member of, or a guest speaker, or a guest of the Plant City Daybreak Rotary Club, I know you're friends with George Banning. I can guarantee that there's no one at the Trinkle Center tonight that hasn't been to a 7 a.m. meeting at South Florida Baptist Hospital. Number 4 is, if your favorite college team is your own alma mater, and anybody playing that dang Ohio State University, I know you're friends with George Banning. Number 5, if you're a member of the YMCA and you like to work out in the mornings and you find yourself drinking coffee more or equal to the time you work out, I know you're friends with George Banning. Congratulations again, George, and thanks for being such a great neighbor. And I really hope you enjoy tonight's program at the Trinkle Center.